Thursday, June 4th edition of the Carolina Weather Video. I'm meteorologist Matthew East here with you. Let's start this morning with a look from the Fury 325 camera, courtesy of Carowinds.com. That is the brand new Giga Coaster there at Carowinds, and it is kind of an overcast, cool start to the day. The observation there near Carowinds on the south side of the Charlotte area, 61 degrees with a northeast wind at 8 miles per hour. Now, as we take a peek at the numbers from yesterday, the wedge or the cold air damming scenario very evident across the foothills and the Piedmont. Charlotte's high at 69, Raleigh 68, 65 in Greensboro, but 80 in Columbia. And down in that more unstable air in South Carolina and then over into eastern North Carolina, had a pretty convectively active day yesterday. Again, around the Triad, everybody in the 60s yesterday, around the Charlotte area, upper 60s to lower 70s, some mid-70s over in parts of Anson and Richmond counties, mid-60s up in parts of the northern half of the Charlotte viewing area. Temperatures, as I'm cutting the video, 5:30 this morning, 50s to 60s across the region, a little bit warmer in Cape Hatteras there at 71. Winds across the Piedmont zones, and really even now all the way to the North Carolina coast, outside of the Outer Banks, out of the north and northeast. And it will be another cooler type of day today. More on that in just a moment. This was the radar presentation throughout the day, yesterday afternoon and yesterday evening. You had two active areas of rain and thunderstorms, and really it remained pretty active through the night. You had over here in eastern North Carolina and down here in the parts of South Carolina, a couple of pretty active areas of showers and thunderstorms yesterday. And that's where your storm reports were largely focused and down into parts of eastern Tennessee, western South Carolina, and Georgia. A lot of flooding issues in South Carolina, and this is the reason why. These are your 24-hour rain totals, and again, you have some big numbers there in parts of, first of all, eastern North Carolina. A lot of folks up over 2 and 3 inches with some locally higher amounts, and same story down in the parts of South Carolina too. The yellow shading, that's up over 2 inches of rain, and you get into that orange shading, that's over 3 inches, and it goes up from there. So there's been a lot of rain over the past 24 hours in parts of the Carolinas, but not in the Triad, really. Not a lot of measurable rain yesterday. Only 2/100ths of an inch of rain in Reidsville, 1/100th of an inch of rain at the PTI airport. Charlotte, very similar. Had almost a 1/4 inch in Rockingham, only 2/100ths of an inch of rain at the Charlotte airport, 4/100ths in Gastonia, 1/100th in Monroe. You get the idea. Not a lot of overly significant rain across the Charlotte or the Triad areas yesterday. Now, this is the current radar, and again, it's still pretty active in those areas that had a lot of the rain yesterday. There's been some flooding issues overnight between Columbia and Augusta there in South Carolina, and still a lot of rain over in the eastern parts of North Carolina as I'm cutting this video this morning. So here's the setup. You have a piece of upper-level energy situated right about here, associated with that South Carolina activity, surface low near the coast. Both of these features slowly working eastward. Now, across the Interstate 85 corridor today, we're looking at a lot of clouds, still relatively cool, some isolated showers, but I don't think the rain today overly significant for a lot of the Piedmont. 70 the high in Greensboro. We'll see if we get to 78 in Charlotte, maybe more like mid-70s, 71 in Raleigh, and then warmer down into South Carolina. Tomorrow, we see the wedge breakdown. There'll be more sunshine tomorrow. A few afternoon storms in the mountains and the foothills especially. A couple of those could drift down into the Piedmont. Your Friday highs getting up into the 80s in many spots once again. And then as we get into the weekend, this is Saturday's map. Cold front approaching from the north. I think what you see here on Futurecast, I think this looks a little bit worse than what will actually transpire. I'll go with the idea of some isolated showers or storms there on Saturday. But I think a lot of us get away with the dry Saturday forecast with your highs in the 80s up to 90 in Columbia. And then Sunday, another deal where we have some northeasterly flow in place. Still probably low 80s out there on Sunday afternoon, but could be a couple of showers. But again, Sunday, most of us dry. Now, I do think better storm chances work back in here for Monday and Tuesday of next week as this front begins to approach from the northwest. Now, in the tropics, everything quiet in the Atlantic basin. No sign of trouble anywhere across the Atlantic, the Gulf, the Caribbean Sea, or the really anywhere across the Atlantic basin. But again, in the eastern Pacific, things are quite active. You have one weak system right here, but much more significant is this system you see there south of Mexico, and this is a powerful hurricane, Hurricane Blanca. Check out the enhanced satellite imagery. Look at that perfectly formed eye earlier in the 24-hour cycle. And the movement has been a little bit of a drift to the south over the past 24 hours. Here's the information on that hurricane. Category 3, 125 mile per hour sustained winds. And this is probably going to become a Category 4 as it begins to move to the northwest. And then it'll weaken as it gets over some cooler waters off the coast of the Baja Peninsula. And this will wind up being a pretty close call here for the Baja Peninsula. Certainly you're going to see a lot of rain up that way, and some of this moisture probably gets drawn up into the southwestern U.S. with time, but the system itself should weaken as it gets closer to the Baja Peninsula later on in the weekend. All right, that is it for today's edition of the Carolina Weather Video. Everybody have a wonderful day, and God bless.